They said I was not committed enough when I asked to work from home twice a week. 6 months later, I bought out their biggest competitor and watched their empire crumble. If you enjoy stories of corporate revenge and entrepreneurial triumph, hit that like button and subscribe for more. My name is Kendall, and I used to believe that hard work and loyalty were enough to build a successful career. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in March when I walked into the sleek Manhattan offices of Hartwell Financial Group, carrying my usual coffee and the proposal that would change everything. I had been with the company for 4 years, climbing from junior analyst to senior project manager, consistently exceeding targets and earning the respect of clients and colleagues alike. The proposal wasn't radical. I was asking for the flexibility to work from home 2 days a week. My productivity had never been higher, and with technology making remote collaboration seamless, it seemed like a reasonable request. My daughter Emma had just started kindergarten, and the long commute was eating into precious family time. More importantly, I had been tracking my output for months, and my home office days were consistently more productive than my office days. I knocked on Marcus Hartwell's corner office door, my confidence high. Marcus was the CEO and founder, a man in his 50s who had built the company from the ground up. I respected him, or at least I thought I did. "Come in, Kendall," he said without looking up from his computer screen. His office was a testament to old-school corporate culture. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, and framed photos of him shaking hands with various business leaders and politicians. "Marcus, I wanted to discuss the flexible work arrangement proposal I sent you last week," I began, settling into the chair across from his desk. That's when he finally looked up, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. It wasn't consideration or even mild interest. It was dismissal. "Kendall, I'm going to be direct with you," he said, leaning back in his chair. "This company was built on dedication, on people who understand that success requires sacrifice. When you're asking to work from home, what I'm hearing is that you're not fully committed to this organization." I felt my cheeks flush. "Marcus, with respect, my performance reviews have been exceptional. I've brought in 3 major clients this quarter alone, and my team's productivity metrics are among the highest in the company. Performance isn't just about numbers, Kendall. It's about presence, about being part of the team culture. When you're not here, you're not really here." He gestured around his office as if the physical space itself was sacred. "I've seen what happens when we start making exceptions. First, it's 2 days a week, then it's 3, then people are calling in from their kitchen tables in their pajamas." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. I had expected pushback, maybe some negotiation, but not this complete dismissal of my work ethic and professionalism. "I understand your concerns," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I think if you look at the data, you'll see that remote work can actually increase productivity. Many of our competitors are already implementing flexible policies, and they're seeing great results." Marcus's expression hardened. "Kendall, I'm going to stop you right there. This isn't a negotiation. The answer is no, and frankly, the fact that you're pushing this makes me question whether you're the right fit for this company moving forward." The words hit me like a physical blow. In 4 years, I had never received anything but praise for my work. I had sacrificed weekends, missed family dinners, and poured my heart into building something meaningful at Hartwell Financial. And now, because I had asked for 2 days of flexibility, my commitment was being questioned. "I see," I said quietly, standing up. "I'll get back to work then." But Marcus wasn't finished. "Actually, Kendall, let's address this head on. I've been thinking about some restructuring, and I think this conversation has clarified things for me. We need people who are all in, who understand that extraordinary success requires extraordinary dedication. I don't think that's you anymore." My heart started racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that perhaps it's time for you to explore other opportunities. Opportunities that might be more aligned with your current priorities." The room seemed to spin slightly. "Are you firing me?" "I'm giving you the chance to resign gracefully. 2 weeks' notice, full severance, and a positive reference. But I need people who want to be here, not people who are looking for ways to be somewhere else." I stood there for a moment, processing the surreal turn the conversation had taken. This man, who had praised my work just months earlier, was now essentially forcing me out because I had asked for flexibility. The injustice of it was overwhelming. "I'll need to think about this," I said finally. "Of course, take the day. But Kendall, understand that this isn't really a choice. The direction I'm taking this company doesn't include employees who aren't fully committed to our traditional values." I walked out of his office in a daze, my mind reeling. My colleagues were busy at their desks, unaware that my world had just been turned upside down. I gathered my things quietly, telling my assistant that I was feeling unwell and would be working from home for the rest of the day. The irony wasn't lost on me. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at the resignation letter I had drafted. Emma was playing in the living room, her laughter drifting through the house. This was what I had wanted to protect, what I had been willing to compromise for. And now, because of that desire to be present for my daughter while maintaining my career, I was being pushed out. But as I sat there, something shifted inside me. The initial shock and hurt began to transform into something else. Anger. Not just at Marcus, but at the entire system that valued face time over results, that punished people for wanting balance in their lives. I thought about all the times I had stayed late while colleagues left early, all the weekends I had worked while others took time off, all the innovative ideas I had contributed that had directly increased the company's revenue. And now, because I had asked for 2 days of flexibility, I was being labeled as uncommitted. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't just resign and find another job. I would do something that would make Marcus Hartwell regret the day he questioned my commitment. I started researching Hartwell Financial Group's competitors, their client base, their market position. I analyzed their weaknesses and identified opportunities they had missed. And slowly, a plan began to form. If Marcus wanted to see extraordinary dedication, I would show him what that really looked like. But not as his employee, as his competition. The next morning, I walked into Marcus's office with my resignation letter in hand. I had made my decision, and there was no going back. "I accept your suggestion," I said, placing the letter on his desk. "I'll be pursuing other opportunities." Marcus barely looked up. "Smart choice, Kendall. I think you'll find there are plenty of companies out there that might be more suited to your work style." His dismissive tone only strengthened my resolve. "I'm sure I will," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. The 2 weeks that followed were surreal. I continued to work on my projects, training my replacement and transitioning my clients. But every spare moment was spent researching and planning. I learned that Hartwell Financial Group's biggest competitor was a smaller but rapidly growing firm called Pinnacle Solutions. They had been gaining market share steadily, particularly in the tech startup sector that Hartwell had been struggling to break into. What made Pinnacle particularly interesting was their current situation. The founder, David Chen, was looking to retire and sell his stake in the company. The firm had great potential, but lacked the capital and strategic vision to scale to the next level. They needed someone with deep industry knowledge, client relationships, and the drive to take them to new heights. I spent my evenings researching Pinnacle's financials, their client roster, their competitive position. I analyzed their strengths and weaknesses, identifying exactly how they could be positioned to not just compete with Hartwell, but to dominate the market segments where Hartwell was vulnerable. On my last day at Hartwell, I cleaned out my desk while my former colleagues wished me well. Many of them were shocked by my departure, and several mentioned that they had been considering requesting flexible work arrangements themselves. I didn't tell them about my real reasons for leaving, but I made sure they had my personal contact information. "You know," my colleague Sarah said as she helped me pack up my personal items, "I've been thinking about asking for work from home days myself. My commute is killing me, and I'm way more productive when I'm not dealing with office distractions." "You should definitely ask," I told her. "The worst they can say is no, right?" She laughed, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She had seen what happened to me, even if she didn't know the full story. That evening, I made my first real move. I called David Chen directly, having gotten his number through a mutual connection in the industry. I had prepared for this conversation extensively, knowing I would only get one chance to make my case. David, my name is Kendall Morrison. I know you don't know me, but I have a proposition that I think might interest you. I'm listening, he said, his tone cautious but curious. I understand you're considering your exit strategy from Pinnacle Solutions. I'd like to discuss the possibility of acquiring a controlling stake in the company. There was a pause. Are you representing an investment firm? No, I'm representing myself. I have 4 years of experience at Hartwell Financial Group, where I was a senior project manager. I've brought in over $15 million in new business, and I have deep relationships throughout the industry. I also have a vision for how Pinnacle can not just compete with the major players, but beat them at their own game. David agreed to meet with me the following week. I spent the next few days preparing the most comprehensive business proposal I had ever created. I analyzed every aspect of Pinnacle's operations, identified growth opportunities, and developed a detailed plan for how the company could capture market share from larger competitors. The meeting took place in a small conference room at a downtown hotel. David was younger than I had expected, probably in his early 40s, with an easy smile and sharp eyes. He had built Pinnacle from nothing, and I could see why he had been successful. I'll be honest, Kendall, he said after I had finished my presentation. I've had several offers from larger firms, but they all want to absorb Pinnacle into their existing structure. You're talking about something different. I'm talking about taking Pinnacle to the next level while maintaining its identity and culture, I replied. I believe there's a huge opportunity in the market right now for a firm that combines the agility and innovation of a smaller company with the resources and strategic vision to compete with the big players. David leaned back in his chair. And you think you can do that? I know I can. I've been watching Hartwell Financial Group make the same mistakes for years. They're too rigid, too focused on maintaining their traditional culture instead of adapting to what clients actually want. They're leaving money on the table, and they're losing talented people because they can't evolve. Is that why you left? I had prepared for this question. I left because I realized I had outgrown what they could offer me. I have ideas and ambitions that can't be contained within their traditional structure. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had outgrown Hartwell, just not in the way I was implying. David studied me for a long moment. What kind of investment are we talking about? This was the moment I had been building toward. I'm prepared to invest $2 million for a 60% stake in the company. That would give me controlling interest while ensuring you maintain a significant ownership position. Additionally, I'm proposing a 3-year consulting agreement that would keep you involved in the strategic direction of the company while giving you the freedom to pursue other interests. David's eyebrows shot up. $2 million? That's a serious investment. I'm serious about this opportunity, I said. I believe Pinnacle has the potential to be a $50 million company within 5 years, but it needs the right leadership and capital to get there. The truth was, I had been saving aggressively for years, and I had inherited a significant amount when my grandmother passed away 2 years earlier. Combined with my severance package and some strategic liquidations of my investment portfolio, I could make this work. It was a huge risk, but I was beyond caring about playing it safe. David asked dozens of questions about my background, my vision for the company, and my plans for growth. I could see him becoming more interested as the conversation progressed. Finally, he leaned forward. Kendall, I'm going to be straight with you. I've been running this company for 8 years, and I'm tired. I want to spend time with my family, maybe do some angel investing, pursue some other interests. But I also don't want to see everything I've built get absorbed into some corporate machine. That's not what I'm proposing, I said. I'm proposing that we take everything you've built and make it bigger and better, while maintaining the culture and values that made it successful in the first place. And you think you can compete with firms like Hartwell? I smiled. I think I can do better than compete with them. I think I can make them irrelevant. David was quiet for a moment, then he smiled back. You know what? Let's do it. Let's shake up this industry. We shook hands across the table, and I felt a rush of excitement and terror. I had just committed to the biggest risk of my life, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. The legal process of acquiring Pinnacle Solutions took 6 weeks to complete. During that time, I worked closely with David to understand every aspect of the business, from the day-to-day operations to the long-term client relationships. I also began implementing changes that would position us for rapid growth. My first major decision was to fully embrace the flexible work culture that Hartwell had rejected. I restructured Pinnacle's policies to allow employees to work from home up to 3 days a week, implemented flexible hours, and created a results-driven performance evaluation system. The impact was immediate and dramatic. "I can't believe how much more productive I am," said Jessica, one of the senior analysts who had been with Pinnacle for 3 years. "I'm not spending 2 hours a day commuting. I'm not getting distracted by office politics, and I can actually focus on my work." The numbers backed up her experience. Within the first month, our team's productivity increased by 30%. Client satisfaction scores improved, and we began completing projects ahead of schedule and under budget. I made sure to document everything, knowing that these metrics would be crucial for our growth strategy. But productivity improvements were just the beginning. I had a bigger plan in mind. I started reaching out to my former colleagues at Hartwell, particularly those who had expressed interest in flexible work arrangements. I didn't actively recruit them, but I made sure they knew about Pinnacle's culture and opportunities. The results were better than I had hoped. Sarah was the first to join us. She had finally asked Marcus for work-from-home days and had been told that serious professionals don't work in their pajamas. She was frustrated and demoralized, and when I told her about Pinnacle's approach to work-life balance, she was immediately interested. "You're offering everything I wanted at Hartwell," she said during our lunch meeting. "Plus, you're giving me a chance to grow into a leadership role. It's a no-brainer." Sarah brought with her deep expertise in the healthcare sector, an area where Pinnacle had been trying to establish a stronger presence. Within 2 months of joining us, she had secured 3 major clients, including a healthcare technology startup that was preparing for an IPO. Next came Michael, a brilliant financial analyst who had been passed over for promotion at Hartwell despite consistently outstanding performance. He had been frustrated by the company's rigid hierarchy and lack of advancement opportunities for younger employees. "At Hartwell, I felt like I was invisible," he told me. "No matter how good my work was, I wasn't part of the old boys club. Here, I feel like my contributions actually matter." Michael's arrival coincided with our expansion into the technology sector. He had been working on fintech deals at Hartwell, and his expertise was exactly what we needed to compete for the high-value clients that were driving industry growth. As our team grew, so did our reputation. We were becoming known as the firm that attracted top talent from larger competitors, and our client base was expanding rapidly. But I knew that sustainable growth required more than just good people and flexible policies. We needed to differentiate ourselves strategically. I developed what I called the Pinnacle Advantage, a comprehensive approach to client service that combined deep industry expertise with innovative technology solutions and personalized attention. Unlike the one-size-fits-all approach that many larger firms used, we customized our services to each client's specific needs and objectives. For example, when a software startup came to us for help with their Series B funding round, we didn't just prepare their financial documents and pitch deck. We also connected them with potential investors from our network, helped them develop their go-to-market strategy, and provided ongoing advisory services throughout the negotiation process. The result was a successful funding round that exceeded their target by 40%. Word of our success spread quickly through the industry. We were profiled in several trade publications, and I was invited to speak at industry conferences about the future of financial services. Each appearance generated new business leads and attracted more talented professionals who wanted to be part of our growing success. But the real breakthrough came when we landed Technova, a rapidly growing artificial intelligence company that was preparing for one of the year's most anticipated IPOs. Technova had been working with Hartwell Financial Group for their previous funding rounds, But they had become frustrated with the firm's lack of innovation and slow response times. "We need partners who move at the speed of technology," Technova's CEO, Amanda Foster, told me during our initial meeting. "We can't afford to work with firms that are still operating like it's 1995. I knew that landing Technova would be a game changer for Pinnacle. It would establish us as a serious player in the high-stakes world of tech IPOs and would likely attract other major clients. But I also knew that Hartwell would fight hard to keep them. The competition for Technova's business was intense. Marcus himself led Hartwell's pitch, bringing in senior partners and making promises about resources and attention. But I had something he didn't: a team that was hungry, innovative, and completely aligned with our clients' values. Our presentation to Technova was unlike anything I had done at Hartwell. Instead of a formal conference room presentation, we created an interactive workshop where we demonstrated our technology solutions in real time. We showed them how our flexible work model allowed us to be available around the clock, how our diverse team brought different perspectives to problem solving, and how our results-driven culture ensured that their success was our top priority. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," Amanda said after our presentation. "You understand our business, you share our values, and you're clearly positioning yourselves for the future, not the past." When Technova announced that they were switching to Pinnacle Solutions for their IPO, the industry took notice. Several trade publications ran articles about the David versus Goliath story of a small firm stealing a major client from an established player. But I knew this was just the beginning. The Technova IPO was a massive success. The company raised $150 million, and their stock price doubled on the first day of trading. Our innovative approach to the process was credited with helping them achieve optimal market positioning and timing. The success generated unprecedented attention for Pinnacle, and we suddenly found ourselves fielding inquiries from companies across the country. Within 6 months of the Technova IPO, our revenue had tripled. We had grown from a team of 12 to over 30 employees, and we were consistently beating larger competitors for major deals. But more importantly, we had established ourselves as the premier destination for top talent in the industry. I began to hear through industry connections that Hartwell was struggling. Several of their major clients had left for competitors, and they were having difficulty attracting and retaining talented professionals. Marcus had doubled down on his traditional approach, implementing even stricter policies and demanding longer hours from his remaining employees. "He's created a culture of fear," one of my former colleagues told me confidentially. "People are afraid to take vacation time, afraid to ask for anything that might be seen as showing less than total commitment. Morale is at an all-time low." I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness hearing this. Satisfaction because it vindicated my belief that Marcus's approach was fundamentally flawed. Sadness because I knew there were still good people at Hartwell who deserved better. But I also knew that this was just the beginning of my plan. I had built something significant, but I wasn't finished yet. Marcus had questioned my commitment, and I was going to show him exactly what commitment looked like. 18 months after leaving Hartwell Financial Group, I was standing in the executive conference room of our new headquarters, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Pinnacle Solutions had grown from a small firm of 12 employees to a powerhouse with over 60 professionals and offices in 3 cities. We had become the go-to firm for innovative companies seeking financial services, and our reputation for excellence and client service was unmatched in the industry. But the most satisfying moment was yet to come. "Kendall, we have a situation," David said, walking into the conference room with a serious expression. Despite his reduced role in day-to-day operations, he had remained involved as our strategic advisor and had become one of my closest mentors. "What's going on?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. "Hartwell Financial Group is in trouble. Real trouble. They've lost 3 more major clients this quarter, and word is that Marcus is looking for a buyer." I had been expecting this news for months. Through my network of industry contacts, I had been tracking Hartwell's decline. Their rigid culture and outdated practices had finally caught up with them. While innovative firms like Pinnacle were capturing the growing market of tech startups and forward-thinking companies, Hartwell was struggling to retain even their traditional client base. "Are they actively marketing the company?" I asked. "Not yet, but my sources tell me they're in discussions with several private equity firms. The board is pressuring Marcus to consider all options." I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I had built my career. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably in his office, trying to figure out how to save the company he had spent decades building. The irony wasn't lost on me. "David, I want you to reach out to their board. Tell them that Pinnacle Solutions is interested in discussing an acquisition." David's eyes widened. "Are you sure? That's a huge move, even for us." "I'm sure. We have the capital, we have the expertise, and we have the vision to turn that company around. More importantly, we have something they've never had: a culture that actually values people and results over politics and face time." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of financial analysis, due diligence, and strategic planning. Hartwell Financial Group was indeed in serious trouble. Their revenue had declined by 30% over the past year, several key executives had left for competitors, and their client retention rate was at an all-time low. The board was actively seeking a buyer, but they were struggling to find one willing to pay a fair price for a company in decline. That's where Pinnacle's success worked in our favor. We had the financial resources and industry credibility to make a serious offer. More importantly, we had a clear vision for how to revitalize the company and restore its competitive position. I spent days preparing for the most important presentation of my career. This wasn't just about acquiring a competitor. It was about proving a point that had been building for almost 2 years. I was going to show Marcus Hartwell that his approach to business and leadership had been fundamentally wrong. The presentation took place in Hartwell's own conference room, the same building where I had been essentially forced to resign. The irony was almost overwhelming as I walked through the familiar hallways, but I kept my focus on the task at hand. Marcus was there, of course, along with the board members and their financial advisors. His face was carefully neutral, but I could see the stress and exhaustion in his eyes. The past year had not been kind to him. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, standing at the head of the conference table, "I'm here today to present Pinnacle Solutions' vision for the future of Hartwell Financial Group." I walked them through our analysis of the market, our assessment of Hartwell's current position, and our strategic plan for returning the company to profitability and growth. I showed them how our flexible work culture had driven innovation and productivity, how our focus on client service had resulted in industry-leading retention rates, and how our approach to talent management had allowed us to attract the best professionals in the industry. But the most powerful part of my presentation was the financial data. Pinnacle's revenue had grown by 400% in 18 months. Our profit margins were twice the industry average. Our client satisfaction scores were consistently in the top percentile. We had built something remarkable, and the numbers proved it. "Our offer is straightforward," I continued. "Pinnacle Solutions is prepared to acquire Hartwell Financial Group for $45 million. We will retain all current employees who meet our performance standards, honor all existing client contracts, and invest an additional $10 million in technology and infrastructure upgrades." I paused, looking directly at Marcus. "We will also implement the flexible work policies and results-driven culture that have made Pinnacle successful, because we believe that treating people with respect and trusting them to do their jobs isn't just good business. It's the right thing to do." The room was silent. Marcus's face had gone pale, and I could see him processing the implications of what I had just said. The company he had built was being acquired by the woman he had dismissed for wanting to work from home 2 days a week. One of the board members spoke up. "Ms. Morrison, this is a very generous offer, but we need to understand your plans for current leadership." I had prepared for this question. We believe that successful integration requires new leadership with a proven track record of growth and innovation. While we respect the contributions that current leadership has made, we would be implementing our own management structure. In other words, Marcus would be out. The board deliberated for 2 hours while I waited in a nearby conference room. David joined me, and we sat in comfortable silence. both understanding the magnitude of what was happening. Finally, the board chair called us back in. "Ms. Morrison, the board has voted to accept Pinnacle Solutions' offer. We believe your vision for the company's future is exactly what it needs to return to profitability and growth." I shook hands with each board member, maintaining my professional composure despite the surge of emotion I was feeling. When I reached Marcus, he extended his hand with obvious reluctance. "Congratulations, Kendall," he said quietly. "I hope you know what you're doing." "I do," I replied. "I learned from the best. I learned what not to do." The acquisition was completed 6 weeks later. On my first day as CEO of the combined company, I called an all-hands meeting. I stood before the assembled employees of both firms, looking out at faces that ranged from curious to anxious to excited. "I know this transition has been unsettling for many of you," I began. "Change is never easy, especially when it involves your livelihood and career. But I want you to know that this acquisition isn't about eliminating jobs or cutting costs. It's about building something better." I outlined our vision for the combined company: a commitment to flexible work arrangements, a focus on results over politics, and a culture that valued innovation and client service above all else. I announced that effective immediately, all employees would be eligible for work-from-home arrangements, and that we would be implementing profit-sharing bonuses tied to company performance. I believe that when you treat people with respect and trust them to do their jobs, they will exceed your expectations, I continued. I believe that when you create a culture where people want to work, not just where they have to work, you unlock potential that drives extraordinary results. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Employees who had been demoralized and frustrated under the old regime suddenly found themselves energized and engaged. Productivity increased, client satisfaction improved, and we began attracting top talent from across the industry. 6 months later, I was featured on the cover of Financial Services magazine with the headline, "The Flexible Revolution: How One CEO Transformed an Industry." The article detailed how our approach to work-life balance had not only saved a struggling company, but had established new standards for the entire industry. But the most satisfying moment came a year after the acquisition, when we announced our annual results. The combined company had achieved record revenue and profitability, surpassing every benchmark we had set. We had become the largest independent financial services firm in the region, and our client list included some of the most innovative and successful companies in the country. That evening, I sat in my office, the same office that had once belonged to Marcus Hartwell, and reflected on the journey that had brought me here. 2 years earlier, I had been told that I wasn't committed enough because I wanted to work from home twice a week. Now, I was running a company that had proven that flexibility and results weren't mutually exclusive. They were mutually reinforcing. I thought about Marcus, who had taken a consulting role with a smaller firm after the acquisition. I harbored no personal animosity toward him. In many ways, he had given me the greatest gift of my career. His rejection had forced me to bet on myself, to build something from scratch, and to prove that there was a better way to do business. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, now 7 years old. "Mom, are you coming home for dinner?" I smiled, gathering my things and heading for the door. "On my way, sweetheart," I texted back. As I walked through the office, I saw employees wrapping up their day, some heading home to their families, others logging off to continue working from their home offices. The flexibility that had once been seen as a sign of weakness had become our greatest strength. The elevator doors closed, and I looked at my reflection in the polished metal. I had built an empire, not through ruthless ambition or cutthroat tactics, but by believing in people and creating a culture where everyone could thrive. I had proven that success wasn't about the hours you spent in an office. It was about the value you created and the lives you touched along the way. Marcus had been wrong about a lot of things, but he had been right about one. Extraordinary success does require extraordinary dedication. I had dedicated myself to building something better, something that honored both professional excellence and human dignity. And in the end, that dedication had crushed everything he had built.